So I had to tell y'all this story. I can remember almost drowning once. Actually, it was twice. Okay, so if I'm honest, it was probably more times than I care to admit, but we just gonna stick to the two, because they were the most memorable. The first time, I was about 5 or 6, and I fell into my auntie's pool. But before I even had time to panic, one of my older cousins dived in fully clothed and pulled me out. Yeah, he was my hero. He made me feel so safe and secure, like someone would always be there to rescue me. And that feeling stayed with me for so long until it didn't. It was a few years later, during a blazing Georgia summer. Y'all know something about it. I was in Augusta, Georgia, visiting family, and the heat, oh my God, it was oppressive. Like one of those 100-degree days where the air feels like a thick blanket that you can't peel off. My cousins, y'all probably got some of these cousins. So my cousins suggested that we go to the community pool, right? It's fun because it's so hot. But I was still kind of uneasy because, I had, fell into the pool before. So I was kind of, traumatized by that early experience. But the heat, it won out. It was so hot. So even though I didn't know how to swim, I longed for that coolness. But I figured I'd just stay in the shallow end, But my cousins, again, these cousins, they had other plans. Laughing and teasing, they dragged me literally kicking and screaming over to the deep end of the water. And I didn't even have time to resist. They just picked me up like I was weightless and threw me into the pool. Y'all, I wasn't weightless. I sank fast. And that coolness that I was once so anxious for, it turned into a chilling shock to my system. My arms were flailing and my legs froze and panic started to set in. And then I was so mad, anger. Where were these cousins now? Where is the lifeguard? I'm drowning. How could they have thrown me in here like this? This is my family. Sadness. Was my body really this heavy? So burdensome? Am I this alone? I just gave up. I let go and I let the water fill my lungs and I just prayed it'll be over quick. I didn't die that day, but I drowned 1 million deaths in that moment. And I've drowned 1 million times since, figuratively thrown into waters I didn't ask for, unprepared and unsupported. Y'all know about that. But something changed for me that day. Just before I started to slip into probably what would have been a losing of consciousness, deep underwater, I heard a faint voice. Maybe it was my cousin, maybe by this point, but maybe it was my own soul at this point, screaming, "Swim!" But I didn't know how. I didn't know how, but somehow my body knew. My legs started to kick and my arms started to move, and by instinct, by will, by maybe something sacred, I rose. Y'all, I broke the water like a dolphin. It was so graceful. And I was gasping for air, and as it flooded my lungs, it felt so good. Y'all, who knew breathing could feel so good? I tell that story today because, like breath, water teaches us. And water, it disrupts us. Sometimes water comes to us as healing, a warm bath, maybe a cooling Atlanta rain, that's nice. Maybe a sacred ritual of renewal. But sometimes water overwhelms us. We are thrown in it, unprepared. And in that moment, in being thrown in, something is invited to shift. This is the spirit of ingathering, where we're bringing waters from our lives, our joys, our losses, our sacred disruptions. When we've invited things in to shift, we come together not just to celebrate where we've been, celebrate all that y'all did to get me here. Y'all have been so awesome. I've been telling people all week long about how amazing this community is, to have done so much to prepare the way for me. And I know there's so much to celebrate. I'm celebrating right now. I didn't have this in the script, but I'm celebrating right now. I'm celebrating y'all, and I hope that y'all are celebrating this moment. But in Water Communion, it's not just the time to celebrate. I know y'all went through some hardships too. There's been some hard things, and this will also be a time to course correct from maybe some of those things, to remember and to renew some commitments that perhaps you made with Reverend Taryn previously. Maybe other commitments that from across generations and across cultures, people have turned to water for transformation. From the rivers of liberation in the Exodus story, from the baptism story in Jordan, to the Yoruba waters of Oshun that offer sweetness, fertility, and healing. Water carries us through thresholds. And thresholds are usually uncomfortable. Y'all know. But change begins in discomfort. And this story that I shared, y'all know it's not just mine. Many in our community, especially in communities of color, in LGBTQ plus families, in immigrant households, in working class neighborhoods, all of us know what it is to be thrown into the deep end. With these systems that push us deeper into poverty, that push further into incarceration, that push further into housing insecurities, the climate catastrophes, and political violence. And we are just told to just swim. But what if swimming isn't a skill that we're born with? And what if, it's too hard to learn on your own, but what if it's something that we can learn together? I heard in the first service that there are some people who know how to teach how to swim in many ways. And I know that y'all are able to teach how to swim, and we can learn together. And while we're learning how to swim together, what if we stop pretending that the deep end was the same for everyone? It's not. What if empowerment wasn't something that was just handed out like life jackets? What if it was something that was cultivated, that we could teach how to call it forth the way that maybe that voice underwater, or maybe my cousins, they should not have pushed me in, but the yelling to swim, kick your feet, whether that was from in me or outside of me, they didn't jump in. They didn't pull me out. They forced me to remember I had power. As wrong as they were to push me into that situation, it did remind me, and I hope it reminds you, that you have the power, that it reminds others, those who might be joining online, to know that you have power. May something awaken in you as it did in me, calling ours, yours, mine, as Unitarian Universalists, as UU curious folks, as this beloved community, that it is not just for us to rescue people one by one. It is for us to change the whole pool. How about that? And while we at it, what if we widen the shallow end? And what if we make swimming lessons accessible? Right? And y'all know we're not just talking about swimming and that kind of accessibility. Y'all know, I'm new here, so I gotta check in. And so while we're at it, what if we remove the systematic weights around the ankles of so many people? And when someone is drowning, we don't look away. We call out. Maybe we do wade in. And through it all, we hold each other through the fear that so many are drowning. So today, as we return to the waters of ingathering, I invite you to bring not only your joy and celebration, because I'm joyous and I'm celebrating, but bring your disruptions and bring your struggles. Bring the deep moments of your life where you came from the deep end. Because here, I get the feeling that we believe in rising. I'm getting that feeling. I get the feeling from, what Reverend Taryn, y'all didn't hear her preach this morning, but we believe in kicking. We believe in kicking, rising up. Here we believe in the sacred power of water to not only wash us clean, but to remind us that we can swim and we can overcome. And when we forget, may we be the ones who shout, kick your feet, swim. You are not alone. You are powerful, and we will rise together. Amen.
But it is sink or swim time, my friends. At this time of year, yes, we often reflect on the cleansing, the purifying, the renewing power of water, its healing. In a sense, this is like baptizing ourselves in the waters of community and faith, recommitting ourselves to our tradition, our church, and our Unitarian Universalist values with love at the center. Yet, on a day such as this, in 2025, when New Yorkers are becoming sickened and even dying from disease in the water supply, or when Texas and the Northeast and North Carolina are bending under the weight of torrential, fatal flash flooding, when the massive wave of a tsunami earlier this summer threatened the entire West Coast, much of which, by the way, suffers from drought, we can see the balance is off. Water is no longer merely the source of flow and purity. It becomes something else entirely, dangerously out of balance. And speaking of things that are out of balance, the balance of power that should be intact, keeping checks and balances, keeping Americans safe and free, well, that has tipped over on its head, so we hardly know which end is up, by design. The balance of water required to power a civilization feels, on a day like this in 2025, that it hangs on a tightrope. And still, each summer we return to the water. Be it the neighborhood pool, or the ocean, or the lakes, or rivers, yeah, we still go chasing waterfalls against the better judgment of TLC, and maybe the climate scientists too. But it is still true, our vision becomes softened, and our souls find healing at the wide expanse of water when it comes into our line of sight. Science has even studied this. In 2022, a pair of studies conducted by psychologists Richard Koss and Craig Keller at UC Davis proved that gazing at bodies of water can help lower your heart rate, your blood pressure, and increase feelings of relaxation. Their findings were featured in a recent online article in the Journal of Environmental Psychology. And another truth, the wider the body of water, the more pronounced the effect was in these studies, lowering heart rates and blood pressure even further. but you know this. You barely require a scientific study to prove what you know is true, as each year you return to the water in some form, seeking its calming effects on your mind and your spirit. We do seek water's coolness and refreshment, yet I was alarmed this summer when I reached the ocean in South Carolina in late June and found the water uncomfortably warm. Too warm to cool us off in the blazing heat of the day. That was an alarm bell of some kind, underscoring my feeling that this year, well, the balance is just off. And I can't help thinking about that blaze burning right now over the northern rim of the Grand Canyon, and how I read that it's so great it contains firestorms within it. A storm within a storm. Well, when I read that, it occurred to me that that is what we must be. We must be a storm within a storm. This is why we are preparing the way for a pilgrimage this year, because rather than allow the storm to overtake us, rather than drowning in the flood of injustice, those water levels of creeping prices at the grocery store, the water level rising all around us, pulling us towards some kind of inevitable democratic demise. No. We are here to chart our own path. Amen? Amen. The one we choose. Alice Walker said, anything we love can be saved. And I believe that too. See, the outcome you fear most is not inevitable. There is, in fact, so much we can do to become the storm within this storm, making our own weather, disrupting the tyranny by flashing a lightning strike of light unto corruption. You know, when someone goes on a pilgrimage, a spiritual journey within, it's not usually because things are going great. It is because something must change. Maybe you've received some feedback you need to reckon with. Perhaps a relationship has ended in a confusing way. Perhaps a death has occurred that has broken the threads of your life, and you cannot find a way to weave it back together. Or maybe the community has decided it is time for a vision quest or a sacred rite of passage pilgrimage to transition you from one era of your life to the next. I think in some ways maybe that's what I'm going to embark on. And that's my hope also for our youth in this congregation, that maybe at the end of this year they will go on a pilgrimage to our Mecca, Boston, or somewhere else. For me, there came a series of reflections that I could not continue on as I had been and still be present to my own life, to my relationships, my family, to this ministry without a serious pause for some deep reflection. In the ministry of doing, I have lost some of my connection to the divine spirit that animates my life. So I am hearing a call to stay in real life as much as possible, to pause my connection to social media and even the news on behalf of the peace I require to be your spiritual leader. It's just a pause. It's not forever. So I am channeling not the flow of the river and the gentle tides. No, I am channeling the awesome power of water to flood my life with new habits, the power of presence to myself. I mean, you may not realize how little I'm alone. It is never. So I am going on a long walk in coastal Portugal, and what I will encounter there is still largely a mystery to me. I mean, seriously, I have not done much research. I don't really know what's going to happen. But I won't be flooding my ears with podcasts or hot takes or celebrity news or true crime. I may encounter excruciating boredom or wonder, as my son Langston suggested as he watched me type these words. He's like, maybe you'll encounter wonder, Mom. Maybe I'll encounter lightness and play or deep feelings that I often avoid. But I will determine the path and the flow this time. This disruption into my own life will engage the improvisational skills that jazz and ministry have bestowed upon me. This is a time of year for vow renewal, a time to renew your vows, not to be flooded out by fear or powerlessness, but to become the storm within the storm, to make your own lightning rain down love upon everyone you are being told to hate or denigrate. Hail down the message of our interconnectedness upon everyone you are being told to isolate from or to see as separate or unequal, because that is what's happening. And the truth is that we are all connected. If it happens to one of us, it is happening to all of us. And you as Unitarian Universalists know that is the truth. So that is what we must rain down on our communities. Get caught up in a tornado of your own power, the power you have to organize your neighbors, the power you have to inspire your friends to vote, because this is going to be a big year for us in Georgia, the power you have to communicate with your legislators. Don't just assume your minister's doing it and that's good enough for you. You all got to do it, okay? We all got to be doing it. And let them know how they must represent you, because that's how democracy works. My personal storm within the storm will begin with getting 15 minutes of recess back in DeKalb County Public Elementary Schools. I'm jumping into the deep end, I think, with my 2 feet, and I'll tell you how it goes. But you could pray from, yeah. Don't ever let anyone tell you we are cooked, as the kids say. It's too late, or it's too late for our democracy. No. Don't let yourself or your people drown in these oppressive waters. Don't let yourself or your people drown in these oppressive waters. Reach out your hand. Tell them to kick their feet, pull each other up, and yes, together we will swim. We will rise out of the depths. We will become the storm within the storm and make our own weather. So we return to our ritual of water communion with both power and purpose. Our deep commitment to each other, to this faith community that desperately needs you to be pouring a little bit of yourself into it, and to your radical values of love and justice that are always calling you onward into each new day of possibility. May it be so. Amen.